What is up, Pacer Nation? Welcome to the Pacer Pulse podcast, the heartbeat of Indiana basketball. And today, I'm going to do another episode of the Pacers What If series. And I'm going to talk about what if the Indiana Pacers get the number one pick in the 2026 NBA draft. And I want to cover this because I've done a past episode, Pacers What If series episode, where I talked about what if we get a top 4 pick, because at that time, we were still like in the mix, but not. I mean, the odds weren't fully solidified, and obviously they aren't now, but a quarter of the way into the season, we are now the second worst team in the NBA. We're pretty firmly behind the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, they have 9 wins. We have 6 right now. The Wizards are the only worse team than us right now. So, the way it's looking right now, I wanted to kind of go over what if we can land the number one pick, because I think that's a whole different discussion compared to what if we land a top 4 pick, because number one pick is like franchise altering, changes your outlook of your team's future for the next 10 years, possibly. I mean, it just adds such a different, I don't know, element to this team that we could potentially add to it, especially with Haliburton coming back next year, with Siakam still on the team, of course, and with our core group of guys we still have. Adding a number one pick to that mix could potentially change everything, could potentially change the entire East, especially if Haliburton comes back the same, if not ends up being better. I mean, it could be scary in terms of like what we could do in the East. But I also wanted to add, guys, Pacer Nation, if you listen to this on YouTube, I also post these episodes on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So if you ever want to easy listen on your way to work or to the gym, any commute you're doing, it would be the perfect way to listen. And if you listen through Apple and Spotify, I also post these on YouTube as well. So if you want a different experience this on YouTube. And also, I welcome any and all comments in the comment section on YouTube. Even if you disagree with anything I have to say, I would just love to have like a good Discord, let's say, in terms of just your guys' opinions, where you may differ. Obviously, I want it to be cordial and whatnot, but you get what I'm saying. I think it would be cool to kind of have some Pacer talk in that way. So just check those platforms out if you're watching or listening, whichever or. And I really appreciate it if you just give a like, give a good review, thumbs up if you enjoy the podcast. If not, I'll continue to try to make it better and better. So eventually you may want to. But I just appreciate you guys listening, and thank you. But so getting into this episode, what if we get the number one overall pick? And it's also very, very, I don't know, just you're very, very likely to get a franchise cornerstone in this draft. I mean, usually when you get the number one overall pick, right, it's a slam dunk. Usually you're going to get somebody that changes your franchise. Granted, I know like what would happen with the Atlanta Hawks in a down year where they got Zachary Ricochet, who's kind of looking like just a role player. I mean, he's really taken a step back even from what he was his rookie year. But what I want to point to is like what happened with the Dallas Mavericks with getting Cooper Flag, like those type of draft years when there's clear-cut number one guys that can change your franchise's fortunes. Considering what happened with them in the Lakers, I'm not going to get into the conspiracy side of this all, how maybe they got like a wink from the league. We'll give you the number one pick if you trade Luka to the Lakers. I'm not throwing that out there completely, but I will say I kind of believe that's what happened. But if that happened to us, like there's already 3 guys that are clear-cut potential number one overall picks, like worthy, especially like almost in any draft you can imagine. So the fact that there's like 3 surefire number one pick potential guys only strengthens the case for why we should tank this year. And the fact that if we get a number one pick, obviously, even if you get a top 3 pick, you're coming out pretty good. But if you can have your pick of the litter between AJ DeBonsa, Cam Boozer, or Darren Peterson. Sorry, I was spacing on his name. If you could have a pick of any of those guys, especially with getting the number one pick, I mean, I don't think you can go wrong necessarily. Let me just say that. And for us being able to get the number one overall pick for the first time in our franchise history, especially after coming off a Game 7 in the NBA Finals where we essentially have our entire same team. Yes, we need to shore up the center spot a little bit, but I think we dodged a bullet not paying Miles Turner that money. He's looked pretty bad in Milwaukee, and we know how their season's going as well. They may lose Giannis. I mean, I don't think that contract's going to age very well for Miles. So I'm very happy we dodged that bullet, but we still definitely need to shore up that center spot. But I think we have some assets we can move around to do that. So I'm not worried about that as much, or even adding like a star level center at that spot, because if we can get the number one pick, And I'll tell you a guy that I'm really kind of starting to lean towards more so. And that's because he's really picked up his play as of late and shown other aspects of his game that I think were kind of question marks. He still has some question marks to his game, but he's answered some of those other question marks that I think he's building more and more of a case to be the number one overall pick. And it doesn't help that Darren Peterson's been hurt a lot this season because I think he still is probably he could still be the clear cut number one regardless because I just think like his 6'6" size, he's so poised in almost every aspect of the game from what you've seen a little bit of in college. And you hope he can get back to being 100%, but hamstring injuries, as we've seen from like TJ, isn't easy to come back from, especially in a shortened college season. So I hope he can just to show what else he can really do, especially with his explosion and whatnot and getting to the rim. But I still think that if we get the number one pick, I think we have to really look at an AJ DeBonsa. And I say this is a guy that I've been more and more intrigued with because I was just looking at his numbers earlier, what he's been doing lately. Granted, against weaker competition, but he just had like a 30-point triple double, I think, even if it was against bad competition. But the fact that he was able to dish out 10 assists, that was one aspect of his game where scouts, I think, were a little hesitant on in terms of is he going to be more of like a ball stopping, not much of a playmaker type of wing. But the fact that he's shown that ability, and I think, let me pull up his averages because I saved it earlier because I think he is averaging close to, let's say, like 5 assists a game. Let me see here. Okay, I got it here. 3 assists a game right now, which is pretty solid for a wing. He's like a 6'9" wing. So the fact that he's really improved that so far, and I think he's even upped it even more in these last 5+ games. Like I said, he had a 10 assist game, triple double. I mean, granted, even if it's against weaker competition, that's pretty solid. A pretty solid line for a 6'9" wing who wasn't expected to be that much of a playmaker. But he is averaging 22 points right now, 7 rebounds, 3 assists. He's shooting 57% from the field, which is like amazingly good for a wing. The only question mark is his 3-ball right now is 30%. And as we know with the Pacers this year, our 3-point shooting isn't good at all. We're literally like bottom 2 in the NBA. And obviously, I think it's going to be better when Haliburton comes back too. Obviously, he's a good shooter. Siakam's been a good shooter since he's been here. I think Neesmith will get easier looks, of course. He gets a lot more open threes for us with Haliburton's back, and maybe that will actually benefit like a DeBonsa too. If we draft him number one overall, he'll get a lot more easier looks from three because I'm sure he's being heavily guarded for this BYU team. I'm sure he's just getting no open looks. All of it's like self-creation. And he's averaging a steal a game, half a block, so he is improving those defensive numbers too that I think scouts were wanting to see more from him because he has all the athletic tools, and he should be like an elite two-way wing, essentially. And we haven't had that, of course, since prime Paul George days. And I think it's like that part of the lineup that we just made finals, Game 7 with Aaron Neesmith at 3. So I'm never going to dog Neesmith what he's done because he's been phenomenal in that role. And even Mathurin, whenever he was starting the beginning of the year when Neesmith was hurt last year, and really helped keep us above water too, even after that rough start. I just think that adding a guy that's 6'9" could potentially be your best scoring player on the team, essentially at 6'9". And we just see like this archetype being more and more successful in the NBA. I mean, they're not the same exact players, of course, but like AJ DeBonsa with Cooper Flagg, let's say, like Cooper Flagg, that atypical 6'9" wing, could score for almost anywhere on the court. Honestly, they're pretty equivalent in that regard, I would say. Even DeBonsa is probably more of an offensive threat, especially considering what we thought their skill levels were offensively. I would say DeBonsa is even viewed as probably as like a higher skill level offensively than Cooper was projected to be, even though he's far exceeded those expectations so far. But they both kind of struggle from three. So if you kind of want to, I'm not trying to say they're the same player. Don't get me wrong. Because Cooper Flagg's amazing. He's phenomenal. Going to be probably a top 5 player in the NBA one day from what he's shown. Can impact the game on so many levels. But I think AJ has really shown that he's probably even a better offensive player than Cooper Flagg. But yet, could still grow in the rebounding aspect, which he's already averaging 7 rebounds a game. The assist aspect, he's continuing to improve. And obviously, we know defensively Cooper's better, but he has all the tools to be just as good as Cooper. So if you can add a guy like that on the wing, let's say Cooper Flagg-esque type of impact, obviously not the same player, so don't quote me. but just kind of filling that similar role. So adding that to a lineup of like Haliburton, Nemhard, AJ DeBonsa, Siakam, and then whatever center we're able to like get out there in the market, some starting level center, that is like the core of a championship team, flat out. And even if we start Neesmith still or Matherin, depending on what happens there, I'll get into that too. Either if we start one of those guys and bring AJ off the bench and slowly kind of work his way in, I think it's going to be hard to keep a number one pick off the, coming off the bench the entire year. I mean, we've seen it with San Antonio with Dylan Harper, and it's been extremely successful. So we could follow that same blueprint. You never know, but I just think that with the number one overall pick, that's different clearly than, let's say, what Dylan Harper is, who is phenomenal in itself. But I just think number one pick is almost undeniable. They're going to start at some point, and that's why, like, my case for AJ DeBonsa, it almost would just be too good of a fit to pass up on, and maybe not even just fit, but like upside wise. And I wouldn't even be upset if we got Darren Peterson or if we view Cam Boozer as the best guy. I still think Boozer's a tier below those guys just because of the upside factor. Cam Boozer's going to be a phenomenal player in the NBA for years and years and years and years. Like, the dude's going to be a cornerstone of a franchise. I just think like Peterson and DeBonsa have that next tier to them where it's hard to debate Cam Boozer over those guys. So as much as I love Cam Boozer's fit possibly with the team too, even though we already have Siakam, I just think like DeBonsa and even Peterson to a certain aspect, and I'll get into that as well. I just really grown onto the idea of getting DeBonsa. It's hard to pass up on guys that are 6'9", that has that elite of a skill, like offensively. Could potentially be an all NBA defender with his athletic gifts and size and all that. I just think that's going to be too enticing for us to pass up on, especially if his character is going to be good. I know we only bring in high character guys, but if we could add a guy like that to this roster and to this team, I mean, that's scary hours for the rest of the Eastern Conference. I mean, maybe even to the Thunder. I mean, it's just whoever's going to be in that race. We've seen the Thunder fall to the Spurs already 3 times this season. They've had their number, so they're not unbeatable, and we've shown that even last year in the playoffs, in the finals. So that's why, like, people are talking about the Thunder being this juggernaut, like, oh, could they be better than the Warriors team that won over 70 games? It's like, guys, like, did you not watch the finals last year? Did we not get any credit for taking this team to like 7 games and showing that they are, yes, mortal, regardless of what they started out this year? Kudos to them for that incredible start, regardless. But they are being shown that they can be beaten, and we even shown that ourselves. So I think just being able to bring back that same team, add a starting level center, and that gets into my next what if is like, what if we get this first pick, right? I think that changes how we view Matherin, and as big as a fan that I am of Benedict Matherin, if we get the number one pick, and let's say we decide to go with AJ DeBonsa, that makes him expendable in my eyes, and I don't want to get rid of Matherin for anything. I think he has star-level upside, but if he can help swing a trade for a starting-level center, and even Neesmith for that matter of fact, like, I'm including both these guys in this, but I'm just going with Matherin because of his contract. I know that's always a big talking point. But it's too early to tell, of course, because we don't know if we're going to get the number one overall pick, who we would take. But we could even do a sign and trade in the offseason for a center. I know we're looking now. So it could even leak into the offseason where we can potentially trade for a starting level center. You never know. Maximize our losing this year. But I'm just saying, it leaves the door open, like more open for Matherin to be traded. Let's say if we target an AJ DeBonsa with the number one overall pick. I don't think anybody's really arguing that fact. And I hate to even say it myself, but sometimes when you get the number one overall pick, it changes your outlook to this team, like to your team completely. And you would have to be more willing to do that. Even though as big of a Matherin stan as I am, I would have to be more open to that. But now, I will say, what if like our team is like, hey, we view Darren Peterson as the best prospect, and what if our front office is like, man, imagine a Tyrese Haliburton, Darren Peterson backcourt, and that would easily be the best backcourt in the NBA for the next 10 years. I mean, I guess you could include Shea and Jalen Williams, or I don't think Jalen's really a 2. I guess he's more of a 3. But you get what I'm saying. One of the top 2 probably backcourts in the entire NBA. And we've seen how the Spurs have been able to beat the Thunder. They've matched them with speed, with De'Aaron Fox, with Stephon Castle, with Dylan Harper, where they have the guards to really go after the Thunder in a way that no other team really has. And I think that's what we even showed in the playoffs last year, where we have like a Nimhard, we have like a Haliburton, we have a TJ McConnell. Granted, I know he's not like all-star level upside like some of these other guys the Spurs have, but like you get what I'm saying. We had some of the guard play that can match what the Thunder were doing, and if you could add a Darren Peterson to that, who has superstar potential possibly, I mean, who's to say we can't go toe-to-toe with them and actually bring home a championship to Indiana with that as well? So I could see the argument for that, and that's where I would be like, all right, this is where I've made this argument in the past. Like, if we decide, hey, Darren Peterson's our guy, that's who we should take number one. And I would get that completely. I would be super hyped for that too. But I think that leaves the door open to trading Andrew Nimhard, because you don't get the number one overall pick and just sit him on the bench behind an Andrew Nimhard. I'm sorry. As much as he's done for the franchise, I think you use him, leverage him to get a starting level center. You bring back Matherin, and you have Neesmith still, who could come off the bench, or Matherin starts at the 3. Whichever way you want to do it. Maybe Neesmith starts at the 3, you bring Matherin off the bench, whatever. Or you bring back those guys. I think it changes your outlook because, like I said, it changes your philosophy as a team when you get the number one overall pick. It just changes your outlook on the team. And if they really truly believe Darren Peterson would be that guy, and I mean, like I said, I think it would be scary, scary, scary if Haliburton and Darren Peterson were the backcourt for the next 10 years for this team. That would be frightening, just as much as the AJ DeBonsa thing to me. So I would not be upset with either of those guys, but I think that would open the door for Nimhard possibly being traded. And I think he would be a valuable trade chip. He's on a good contract. I mean, I know he struggled this year from shooting, and his defense hasn't been as good this year because he's not in his ideal role, I guess. But you could see where a team would definitely highly covet Nimhard because he's on a good contract. Maybe we throw in like a 2017 excuse me. I'm 10 years behind. 2027 first round pick with Nimhard, and then maybe, who knows, some salary, Jarris, whatever it would take to get a starting level center. I think you would do that then in that case, because you're not bringing Darren Peterson off the bench for too long. Maybe you do, like I said, a Dylan Harper scenario, but you didn't see the Mavs bring a Cooper Flag off the bench. So if you got a guy of that level, and I get it, like, you can make that argument. I would see what the front office was doing if we did bring the pick off the bench to start the year. But I'm just saying that's almost too good to pass up on. And so let me go over Darren Peterson's numbers so far. So he's only really played 4 to 5 games, so it's not really a good sample size to tell right now. So he's averaging like 19 points in those games, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, but only in 26 minutes. But he's shooting like 53% from the field, 42 from 3. Elite numbers shooting-wise. I get it, only 4 games. And he's dealing with this hamstring injury, so you just can't really take too much away from his stats right now. A steal per game, a block per game in those 4 games. So, I mean, he's projected to be elite already, like on both sides of the floor, where maybe AJ DeBonsa, it's still questionable if his defense will translate, which you're banking on his tools, obviously, his athleticism and his length and all that, his height. But with Peterson, he's already shown that already with his height and length on the defensive end. He's obviously an elite three-point shooter already, can score from all 3 levels. That's why I think he's even held that top spot, even though DeBonsa's clearly pretty much neck and neck right now. I mean, it helps that Peterson's been hurt too, so I don't think you can go wrong with either of those 2 guys. And even a Cam Boozer, like I said, he's a winning player. But I just think it'd be tough to pass on either of those guys for Cam Boozer, in my opinion, if you get the number 1 overall pick. So it really changes the outlook of the team either way, whichever guy that you get in that first overall pick. But I think that, let's say you add a Peterson, you got Tyrese Haliburton, Darren Peterson, Neesmith or Matherin, Siakam. Let's say you trade for a center, you trade Nimhard, Walker first or whatever to get a starting level center. That team is looking scary. That's a team that obviously can be at the top of the East, especially if Haliburton comes back okay. I mean, we've seen Isaiah Jackson be back okay, and even James Wiseman to a certain extent. So, I mean, it's not like it's impossible. So, I'm very intrigued. I'm very intrigued by this what-if scenario because it is a very strong possibility right now. And let's say go stack it up against the East right now. So obviously, like Boston, once they get Tatum back, yeah, they have their own question marks, but they do have those wingy type defenders. Their team kind of makes more sense, honestly, which is kind of crazy to say from how good they were before. But they got that Hugo Gonzalez, Jordan Walsh, two 3-and-D-ish, or I don't even know if they're strong 3-point shooters, but you get what I'm saying. Strong 3-and-D-ish type of wings. They can plug in there next to Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum when he comes back. They still got Derek White, Peyton Pritchard. I mean, Kata's actually been a revelation for them at center, so maybe they're not as desperate for a center. But they're kind of like us in that sense where they could upgrade in that regard. That's why we got so many parallels with that team right now. In that you're looking at them, if you added Peterson or Debanza, you're kind of looking at the Celtics. I mean, the Pistons aren't really going anywhere, but I'm not really scared of the Pistons, honestly, in that scenario. Even though I respect them, I think we would have the firepower to go against them. Even though they do, like I said, Duran's been amazing this year. Cade's been a top 3-5 player this year. I mean, with how good Detroit's been. Asar still got a lot of potential. Isaiah Stewart off the bench. They got a lot of potential on that team as well. But I think we would match up well with them. And then the Knicks, I'm not afraid of the Knicks. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just my homerism kicking in, but I'm not afraid of the Knicks in a playoff series. Even if we didn't get a top pick. I mean, if we just added like a starting level center and brought back Matherin and we rolled with it, I wouldn't even be afraid of the Knicks necessarily, even with that scenario. But adding a DeBonsa or Peterson potentially, I mean, I'm not afraid of that team. So, like, what teams are we really afraid of or like going to be contending against in the Eastern Conference? And then even with that team, like I said, with a Peterson, DeBonsa, I'm not afraid of going up against the Thunder. After we just took them to Game 7, adding that elite franchise-changing talent, by the way, to your roster, yeah, I think we could finally bring a championship home to Indiana. And I just pray that Siakam can still be at that elite level next year, where we're kind of wasting like an all-NBA type level of play from him this year, sadly. And that's what sucks a lot. That's why I'd almost be open to like shutting him down at some point. I know like you don't want to lose on purpose, but man, like at some point you do have to think of next year and what and preserving this guy, like especially with TJ as well. I think I could just see it where towards the end of the season, we're going to really see these guys get a lot more rest because at some point, obviously, we're not making playoffs. We're not, I think even right now, we're not going to make the playoffs. And I'm not trying to put the nail in the coffin per se on that, but I just don't think it's going to happen. I mean, there's no way. I mean, we're 6-20 something right now. It's not going to happen. So I think eventually you do embrace that. You embrace developing Furphy, Cam Jones, whatever you do with Walker and Shepard, I guess. See what you got in Matherin still, and you make your decisions at the deadline or in the off season. But with the team we have now, obviously we're bad enough to lose and be able to get a potential number 1 pick. So I think this is like the biggest what if that we could ever have in franchise history, future wise. And it's just so enticing to think about now, especially now that it's like a very strong possibility considering how the season's gone so far. I mean, I never would have thought we'd been worse than the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, if you thought, if anyone predicted that, I would say you're a liar. I would have never predicted that. And it's just boggling to me still that we are. I mean, we lost to that team. We lost to the Wizards without Alex Sarr and like Chris Middleton. I know he's got a wash, but still, it's crazy to me to think about Pacer Nation. But the fact that we are where we are at, but it is such a blessing in disguise. And the good Lord Almighty was looking after us when Pritchard traded for that pick. I know that it's impossible to predict what happened to us, but the fact that he traded back for our first round pick from the Pelicans, like out of nowhere, and it went under the radar because we were in the finals, so nobody paid attention to it. But the fact that it happened and that Haliburton tore his Achilles in Game 7 and that we lose Miles, which I already said I think is a blessing in disguise. But we lose Miles, so we're like, oh, we're really looking at this next season as being a gap year, even though we're not labeling it as that, because nobody on the team is going to label it as that. And rightfully so, because we want to be competitive after that kind of season. But I think obviously we've been using this as an evaluation year, but you can't really because all the injuries. It's been a weird year, Pacer Nation, but that silver lining is the fact that Kevin Pritchard was able to trade back for that pick. And who could have imagined, like, if he didn't, and how bad this season would look right now if we did not have our first round pick? I mean, it was just a blessing in disguise. in terms of being able to get that. Not the Haliburton injury, that's not what I'm saying, but just the fact that we somehow were able to get that pick where most of the time it would have been meaningless, especially if, let's say, if Haliburton never got hurt and let's say we won the finals and that pick would have just been a late 30s pick. Just it would have been a late first rounder. But the fact that this did happen and all these injuries have occurred, man, could it be that we're finally blessed with the number one overall pick, Pacer? Imagine AJ DeBonsa on the wing, playing at the 3 spot, having that 6'9" forward that can score from any level, get us a bucket when Haliburton can't score, when Siakam's, just that three-headed monster we would have with those guys. And then even like a Darren Peterson, it's too much to think about because it gets me too excited. And obviously, I don't want to put any bad juju towards it, or I'm gonna pray for it every night, whether that matters or not in the grand scheme of things. That kind of prayer would be answered. I don't know, but I hope that can happen for our franchise's sake. We deserve it. We've never gotten it before in our franchise history. I think it's finally time, and I think it's time that we get rewarded in that way. The highest pick we've had, I think ever I don't want to say ever, I don't know, was the Rick Smits pick, number 3 overall, 1988. Never a pick higher than that or even at 3 since then. So I think we're long overdue. I think that it's finally possible that it happens. Obviously, worst case scenario is we fall to 5 or 6, and then that would be a devastating blow. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Like, if we get 5 or 6 pick, this pretty much this year would have been for nothing almost, in a sense. So we got to really hope we can get it. But just imagine that we'd have a guy on the wing of that size, at that elite level of potential. Like I said, just go and look at a Cooper flag right now and see how excited Mavs fans are. And Cooper has slowly become one of my favorite players in the league too. But just having a guy that's 6'9", he could even grow more. Who knows? He's so young. But 6'9", score from the mid-range, get to the hoop, has such a high impact on the team in general. He's basically their number one option now, which is crazy to think. And like I said, even AJ DeBonsa projects to have even a higher offensive ceiling than Cooper has shown. So you never know how these guys are going to develop even more. And I think AJ is the type of guy that's going to thrive even more in the NBA. He is that type of player, I think, in my opinion. And imagine him next to Haliburton even again. So he's going to get an easy 6 points a game just from Haliburton alone. And that's going to be in fast breaks. Imagine this guy getting out on the fast break and just all the shots that he's going to create for him, just easy shots. Even just throwing oops to the rim at this guy. He's going to be, I don't know. I don't want to get too excited, Pacer Nation, but that's what I wanted to really bring in today was what if we get that number one overall pick and these different avenues that it can maybe go down. Like I said, if we get a Darren Peterson, we could trade a Andrew Nembhard. If we get AJ DeBonsa, I think we're going to be more open to trading Mathurin, as they both kind of fill the similar roles. And that's where, like I said, I love Mathurin on this team, but that would change my thinking if we would get the number one pick. And it would change our franchise forever, Pacer Nation. I think going through all this, enduring this lost season, it would have all been for something. And reloading the team with an AJ DeBonsa next to Haliburton next season, or Darren Peterson, I just couldn't imagine a better outcome. Man, if we already have like a top 10 guy, borderline 15, let's say top 15 for Haliburton, you add a DeBonsa or a Peterson who could be potential top 15 guys even in their own right if they develop right. Siakam, top 25 guy. That's a strong case of a championship team, and we already were there without that kind of pick. So imagine that, Pacer Nation. Imagine this what if. Soak it in. I'm trying not to get too married to the idea because you never know what's going to happen. Teams can jump from, like we saw with the Mavs, they had like 1% chance. Like I said, the conspiracy thing earlier. Not trying to dive into that too heavily, but you just never know. But we will have the best odds we've ever had in our franchise history if we can just continue down this path. So I'm kind of slightly getting to be pro tank, and let me give me some Johnny Furphy 20 plus minutes a night. Give me some Cam Jones 15, 20 minutes. Mathurin 30 plus minutes, of course. Nembhard. I want it all. I want to see what these guys can do. And let's just see what we can add to this team next season and enhance our odds of getting just solidifying a top 3 chance at a pick. So that's my what if episode for today, Pacer Nation. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This is a fun series for me. It lets me get to just kind of go off on tangents that I just get these thoughts going in my head, and I'm like, oh, like what if this happens, that happens. But I hope you guys really enjoyed this episode, Pacer Nation, and I will talk to you soon.